Right, so we've got a composition that has nothing in it, nothing in the layer panel, nothing in the timeline. Let's create a shape. So a square, hold on Shift, move the anchor point tool, not the right one, make sure our layer selected, drag it to the center, make sure snapping is on so it snaps to the center. If I hit enter, let's type in box. Let's close the actual layer. Let's align it to the center. So go back to my selection tool, select my layer. Got a line, if you cannot see that, window and align, window and align, so it's got a tick next to it. So now we're going to align it horizontally and to the center. Now what we're going to do is we're going to add more than one transformation to this particular shape. So before I've taught you, let's select my layer, and as you can see it's selected now. If I click on P, get position up, R for rotation, S for scale, and T for opacity. So I want to get two transformations up at the same time. So the same way that we select more than one thing within any other program, we hold down Shift to do that. So we're going to change the rotation. And if I hold down Shift now, and then, so I press R to get rotation up, and then I hold down Shift, and then I press S to get scale up, I can get both of them up at the same time. So now I'm going to select create a keyframe and a keyframe, and as you can see, they're both on there. And the cool thing about this, so if I press U, on my keyboard, it hides all my keyframes. If I press U on my keyboard, it gets up the layers which have keyframes on them. So if I did something like, say, don't worry about this, but I'm just doing this for an example. So we're going to the stroke, say, and change put a keyframe on the color, and then hide everything. And then if I press U, as you can see, I've got a scale, a rotation, and I've got my the color on my stroke has got a keyframe, so that's why that's been brought up as well. I'm just going to delete that keyframe. So I'm going to select the keyframe and hit delete, and then press U again, and then U again, and then I've got my scale and rotation up. So I'm going to go down the timeline, going to go down to 1 second. I'm going to change the scale down to 50. I'm going to do the rotation to 90. And then we've got this here. So look, just scales and rotates down. So I'm just dragging and then hitting spacebar. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to select both of these keyframes here, Command and C, and then I'm going to drag my timeline to where I want to paste these keyframes, and Command and V, and as you can see, it's pasted the keyframes back up. So it's spacebar, shrinks down, and then comes back up. So what happens if I want this animation to be quicker? Now, I could select my keyframes and then just move them closer to each other. But there's a quicker way of doing things. So I can select all of my keyframes. So I'm drawing a box around them. So I'm clicking and dragging. Or I can just click, hold down Shift and click. Or I can click on individual keyframes and select them that way. And then I've got all of my keyframes selected. How do I know that? Because all of them are blue. Now if I hold down Alt, I'm not clicking on anything, I'm holding down Alt, and then I can drag out my keyframes, as you can see. So it does it in proportion to each other, how much space there is in between each one. So say, I'll let go of Alt now. I'm going to select my two middle keyframes. I'm going to drag them close to the center. Can you see how there's a smaller gap here and a much larger gap here? So let's do the same process. So if I select down and select all my keyframes, so I drew a box all over all of them. Once again, or I can select here. And then if I hold down Alt now, as you can see, it does it in proportion to each other. So now I've got that right down, so it's going to be a really quick animation. So look at this. I'm going to click off, hit spacebar. It's a little bit too quick there, so let's drag them all out. Select all again, hold down Alt and drag it out. Quickly goes down and then all the way back up. Go to the end of my timeline, hit N, right click on there and trim comp to work area. Now we're ready to export.